Wait, that's happened? Australia lost a war? To birds? Yes, this really happened. In 1932, the nation of Australia found itself in open conflict, not with another country, not with rebels or invaders, but with emus, those big flightless birds that look like ostriches with an attitude. And against all odds, the emus actually won. The story begins in the aftermath of the First World War. Thousands of Australian soldiers returned home from the trenches of Europe to find a country that was struggling with its own problems. The Great Depression had taken hold, and farmers in Western Australia were trying to make a living by cultivating wheat on marginal land. Many of these farms had been granted to returning veterans as part of a government scheme, but the soil was harsh, the weather unforgiving, and the market prices collapsing. Just as farmers were preparing for harvest in late 1932, a new enemy arrived, not in the form of drought or locusts, but in the form of a feathered army. Around 20,000 emus descended on the farmlands of Western Australia. These weren't ordinary stragglers, but vast flocks migrating inland after their breeding season. To the emus, the wheat fields looked like a free buffet, tall stalks of grain ready to be devoured, soft ground perfect for foraging, and nearby water sources to drink from. To the farmers, it was nothing short of a plague. Fences meant to keep out rabbits couldn't stop birds over 6 feet tall. The emus trampled crops, gorged on wheat, and caused chaos. Worse still, their sheer numbers overwhelmed any attempt to chase them off. The desperate farmers appealed to the government for help, and since many of these farmers were veterans themselves, they asked the military to intervene. It sounds like the setup to a comedy sketch, but the Australian government took them seriously. In November 1932, the Minister of Defense approved a mission to deal with the EMUs. The weapon of choice? The Lewis gun, a portable machine gun that had seen service on the battlefields of World War I. 2 soldiers were dispatched, led by Major G.P.W. Meredith, armed with machine guns, 10,000 rounds of ammunition, and the confidence that surely a military operation could handle some oversized birds. At first, morale was high. The idea of mowing down hundreds of emus with machine gun fire sounded simple enough. But reality set in quickly. Emus are not stupid animals. They are fast, agile, and surprisingly resilient. On November 2nd, the soldiers set up an ambush near a group of about 50 birds. They opened fire, expecting a massacre. Instead, the emus scattered in all directions, sprinting at speeds up to 30 miles per hour. The machine guns jammed. Only a handful of birds were killed. The rest vanished into the scrub. The next attempt involved mounting a machine gun on the back of a truck. The plan was to chase the birds and gun them down on the move. It was a disaster. The ground was so uneven that the gunner couldn't aim properly, and the emus outran the truck. To make matters worse, the truck itself nearly broke down in the pursuit. The operation became a slapstick comedy of military blunders. Major Meredith himself admitted, with some awe, that the emus had a remarkable ability to dodge bullets. He described them as if they were guerrilla fighters, operating in small groups, scattering at the first sign of danger, and regrouping again later. If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, he quipped, it would face any army in the world. That's right. The commander of the anti-emu mission compared his feathered opponents to elite soldiers. By the end of the campaign, after weeks of frustration, the military had fired thousands of rounds, but killed perhaps only a few hundred emus. Estimates suggest the death toll was as low as 200 to 300 birds. Considering the flock numbered in the tens of thousands, the impact was negligible. Meanwhile, the cost of the operation had grown, the soldiers were exhausted, and the farmers were no better off. By early December, the government quietly called off the mission. The Great Emu War, as it came to be known, had ended in defeat. The public reacted with a mixture of embarrassment and amusement. Newspapers mocked the military's failure, and opposition politicians ridiculed the idea that Australia had sent armed forces to fight birds, and lost. The farmers were left to find other solutions, mostly involving building stronger fences to keep the emus out. Over time, the story of the Emu War became a kind of national joke, a reminder that sometimes nature is tougher than any army. But underneath the comedy lies something more serious. The episode highlights the struggles of Australia's farming communities during the Depression. the challenges faced by veterans trying to rebuild their lives, and the tensions between humans and the natural environment. It also shows how absurd history can be. One of the world's most modern militaries at the time, equipped with machine guns, couldn't win against birds with nothing but long legs and stubborn determination. Today, the Great Emu War of 1932 lives on as a quirky piece of history, retold with a smile, but also with a sense of wonder. It reminds us that not all battles are fought between nations. Not all wars are won with firepower, and sometimes the victors are the ones who were never really trying to fight in the first place. Because when Australia went to war with emus, the birds simply kept running, kept eating, and, in the end, kept their place as untouchable rulers of the outback. So the next time you see an emu strutting proudly across the Australian countryside, remember, these birds once took on the army and won. If you enjoyed this strange piece of history, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe for more.